Okay, so I think I don't even know what episode I talked about these things, but no, just the last episode, I think I talked about deep fakes, right?
Yes.
And all the technology to go into that.
Yeah.
And I think there was another episode where I talked about just like video, like the state of or the lackluster state of like video conferencing, video chat.
Oh yes, and the Marantz
Yeah.
device or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have something that is not directly related to those two things, but there's a connection and it's a continuation of those two things.
All right.
So there's a few parts of this actually. So this is like multi-layered, which is again, don't expect this on next episodes. But let's start with something Apple introduced. I just found out yesterday that I didn't know about, but I don't know when the last time you used FaceTime was. It's been a while for me.
I used it 2 hours ago.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if you noticed, it's a setting. So I don't know if it's on by default or not. And I don't know if you need, actually, I think it's any phone with Face ID. I think that's what it is. Any phone with Face ID. But they've added a feature where somehow it repositions your eyes to look like you're looking into the camera, even if you're not.
I feel like we mentioned this on the podcast a couple episodes ago.
Do we? No. What?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I maybe not. I don't know. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, this is not the whole story, but yeah, you maybe.
No, you know what? It was. You know, it was during that. It was either during last episode. It was when you brought up the whole Facebook thing. Like, okay, remember you were talking about the state of video conferencing stuff like that, and you were talking about like dedicated devices, and then you mentioned the Facebook, whatever that Facebook
portal, portal,
portal, exactly. And then I kind of mentioned how it's cool how it tracks you, and then I think I might have slipped in and then how FaceTime is now doing the eye thing.
Oh,
but
okay.
Granted, with video conferencing, we don't always listen to each other. We barely,
yeah, exactly. Okay, well, so
good thing that's not the only. That's not
I'm
the story,
connecting it. I'm connecting to that. Yeah. But that's like I don't know if have you noticed that, because I haven't tried it out. But I don't know if you've noticed.
I haven't tried it out yet. No.
But I guess you wouldn't. No, I guess you would. I guess depending who you're talking to, right? Because they also have to have a compatible phone.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. And theoretically, you wouldn't notice it because it would be so seamless. Like theoretically, you would just think
exactly
the person just looking into the
yeah. So that's kind of crazy, right? Because it's sort of like it's kind of freaky. But something that just was announced, I think last week, is Nvidia, the graphics and chips manufacturer. They've announced this new technology now that can basically replace like your entire person or face. So if you're having a call, so there's a few use cases for this. One being what I just mentioned, right? Like right now I'm not really looking at, like I'm kind of looking at the screen and my camera's above.
Yeah.
So one use case is kind of the FaceTime thing where it'll shift it, right? But completely through software. Like the way Apple does it on iPhones is because with Face ID, they have those fancy sensors to detect your face and map out in infrared. But this apparently is going to do it completely with like software and hardware and just any camera. So that's already kind of crazy. But the other use case that they mentioned is let's say we had a really bad connection, right? Or not even a bad connection. Like, it's really hard to stream like really high resolution, right? Like 1080, 4K because your bandwidth limited and things like that. So the use case they mentioned is they could essentially stream yourself in 4K over like a super slow connection.
That's interesting. So I mean, I was kind of picturing as you were talking about that. So is it because they're really just sending the data points, which is a lot smaller than video data? Like they're just sending effectively it's almost like they're reconstructing you on the other side.
Exactly.
Because they're just sending the data across.
Yeah, exactly. And so what the person is seeing is not actually a video directly of you. It's like a generated computer image of you.
Right.
Which is nuts because it's so crazy because at what point do you define like you're actually looking at the person themselves or not? Because then you're not that far away. I mean, we've already seen it with like, with things like Zoom and stuff. You can replace backgrounds and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So at what point are you just going to replace like aspects of how you look or another avatar or even another person, right?
That's really cool,
yeah.
actually. Is this like ready soon, or like is it?
I think it's really early. Like they just announced it as sort of like something they're working on.
Right.
And obviously it needs like crazy hardware and software to work, but
Yeah.
it's like there seems to be a demo of it. So I mean, I think it's like,
Well,
you know, yeah.
I love when like the solution to something is not like, if something is bad, I don't like when the solution is just to put more power into it, right? So it's like video streaming, it's like, yeah, you know what? If we get higher internet speed connections and faster, you know, image processing and stuff like that, you know, it'll work, right? But I love when the solution is actually completely not in that line, and it's like, you know what? If we just take data points and send that over and reconstruct it on the other side, it's kind of like, you know, I think about like, you know, when online gaming, right? Like online gaming, it's like you don't really need the other person's entire game to stream to you. You just need their position, right? And like,
yeah, exactly.
and send that over, right? Things like that.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's like, that's so much smarter, right? Like,
yeah.
And like it has the potential to really like, I'd be crazy if it was like, if video conferencing was that much better, you know? And I feel like this technique will make it go so much better rather than incrementally, increasing the speed or whatever, this and that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at least it gives another route to take to improve these things, right? Rather than waiting for everyone to have super fast internet and computers. So, I mean, it's crazy, and I think, you know, it's amazing seeing that sort of innovation. But I think there's a flip side to it, right? Like, again, like there's something that I think is a bit strange because, you know, I was reading a bunch of people's just conversations around this, and, you know, some people make a good point where, you know, one of the use cases I mentioned is like, again, you don't have to be looking at the camera, and you might, like, when you look down and stuff, it'll still seem like you're engaged. But then at what point is it like you're not actually seeing the person, right? Because you could easily basically say like, always just show my normal like as if I'm just, you know, interacting normally, and hide like if I'm like angry or like throwing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, at what point are you actually hiding a lot of the reality of the person you're interacting with?
Well, then you kind of get into like, you kind of get into the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the dangerous world of like Instagram, right? Where it's like, you have this representation of a person and their life and what they're like versus who they really are, right? Like I find video has always been one of these things where, oh, that's a nice genuine representation of somebody, right? I always thought like, anytime you see like dating apps, right? Like eHarmony, whatever, you know, these kind of things, I always thought like, and these do exist. I just didn't know they existed, but like, I thought video versions of those would be really good, because then you see how the person talks and behaves and stuff like that. It's hard to fake that stuff.
Yep.
Whereas what you're saying could potentially lead to people faking this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a name for this technology that we should keep our eye out for?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, probably, but it's we'll post a link.
All right, check out Nvidia's Instagram video conferencing.
Yeah, that's totally what it is.